Oh, hi. I'm Owlbear Rogue. Welcome to the cave. We reached 200 subscribers last night. Pew, 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 pew. 200 scribbly dibbly doos. Welcome, everyone. As promised, here is a video briefly explaining how my mind noodled its way through the process of creating my Kraken Week one-shot. This is a process that works for me, as with literally everything I share, take or leave what's valuable to you. Everyone's brain works differently, and I think that's something to be celebrated. One of my favorite things about D&D, in fact, is the insight it gives me into the way my friends' brains work, and how it's sometimes so different from mine. Being a DM and seeing your players tackle a problem in a way that would never have occurred to you, that's gold. That's what it's all about for me. What I'm basically doing in my one-shot videos is giving you a metaphorical, topographical map of a story that you can tell. Not a literal map. I do actually really love making maps for D&D. Maybe we'll do some of that in the future. But I'm talking about a metaphorical map, a layer that has a lot of style, and then the understructure, the peaks and valleys of this map. You can take it, you can place it in different worlds, you can lay it down in different gaming systems. I'm assuming you have a basic knowledge of the elements of telling a collaborative story, and that you're a proficient DM. You enjoy and are comfortable with filling in details for yourself, improvising when you need to. You know how to take something and make it your own, tailor it to your particular table's needs and enjoyment. If that's not the case, you're maybe just starting out, that's not where you're at, there is nothing wrong with that. Literally every single DM has been there. There are a ton of incredible creators here on YouTube with videos designed to help you achieve those goals, and I hope you'll give them some love too. As for my one-shot videos, I think you'll get some ideas for goals for yourself, and maybe start to understand that making a new adventure can be a more fun, fluid, relaxed, creative process than you thought. You might want to listen to my Wild Beyond the Witchlight content, which guides you through a published, detailed, more official campaign. Or maybe you just like some company and you want to have my voice on in the background. Shout out to you as well. If you're looking to build your skills at creating one-shots, let's look at how I put together the quote-unquote topographical map for Deadman's Creek, my contribution to Kraken Week. If you haven't watched that video yet, obviously, go check that out. I always start by looking at genre. D&D is collaborative storytelling. What kind of story are we going to tell? Basically, where would you find this story located in the library? Once you have a genre, it's going to show you the style of the map you're making, a basic idea of where some of the peaks and valleys might go. Different types of stories have classic underlying structures that you can use as a jumping off point. From there, I mine the tropes, the images, the conventions of that genre until I find one or two little nuggets of detail that excite me. Then I build around those details, asking and answering questions as they arise, problem solving as I go until I've created the flat portion of the map. Then I tweak that understructure, the peaks and valleys, the areas of emphasis, and place my flat, stylish map down strategically on top of that structure. Now we have an adventure, voila! A 3D landscape for our players to cavort around in, fuck things up, do things you definitely did not plan for. That is how it works. How did this process play out when I was creating Deadman's Creek? Well, I knew this was a one-shot. I knew it was going to be for Kraken Week, so it needed an aquatic element, and I really wanted it to have an aquatic monster. I went down the list of genres, and I had ideas immediately for each of them, except for the Western. I was about to just cross it off the list. It's silly. It doesn't make any sense. But I got pulled into the challenge of it. I thought, what kind of adventure can come out of a world where there is very little water, but the water that is there is extra enticing and very, very dangerous? This actually sent me on a long side quest, exploring whether or not the movie Waterworld is considered a Western. Turns out a lot of people do consider it a Western, or an inverted Western, if you will, where instead of a lot of land and a little water, there's a lot of water and a little land. I also found a whole camp of people who believe that if Kevin Costner is in a movie, it is automatically a Western, that he doesn't know how to be in anything else. Getting lost on the internet is part of how the brain noodling happens for me. If I were you, I would build in time for some internet rabbit holes. Okay, we have a genre, Western. Now I start finding the images, the tropes, etc. for ideas. As I mentioned in the Kraken video, there are a lot of landmines in digging through the tropes of Westerns. There is a lot of tropes to be avoided. Trope nopes, if you will. But there's some good stuff in there too, and the thing that came to mind first when thinking about Wild West and water was panning for gold. Alright, a detail, an anchor point to put on my brand new stylish map to build out from. I'm going to start asking and answering questions now. Mining for gold in a creek. What's the name of this creek? It needs a good Wild West name. Deadman's Creek. Where is this creek? On a remote part of Deadman's Creek Ranch, of course, and probably down in a ravine, because once we get our players to this creek, we want them to stay down there and meet this monster. Who has made it out to Deadman's Creek? Let's say a family, the Hutchinsons. Oh, now we have some creatures to care about. How did the Hutchinsons wind up out here? Well, they bought this desolate, isolated property because they heard rumors of gold in them there hills. Nothing could be more Western than that. They've been secretly looking for the gold for years. Why secretly? Maybe there's an outlaw gang snooping around that wants to find it too. Sweet. We asked and answered a question, and now we have a second threat to throw at our players. An outlaw gang that is going to be much more mobile and flexible as far as where we can put them and how we can use them than the water monster is going to be. And let's not forget that water monster. Who is that guy? The Hutchinsons think that they've actually found gold. What they found was our monster. I thought of an ooze-like creature almost immediately, something that could hide in the water, could look like the gold they were searching for. I imagined the physicality of reaching into cold, splashing, rushing water, and while you are so focused on the gold you've discovered, you're so excited, your hands are numb, this creature's making its way up your arms, and by the time you notice, it's too late. It's forcing its way into your mouth and your nose. Ew, what is it doing that for? What does it want? Creatures are usually trying to attract their ideal prey, yeah? So if the lure here is gold, they must want to feed off of greed. What would having the very greed devoured out of your mind do to a person? What is the extreme I can take that idea to? Perhaps this person loses their desire, their ability to want anything, even food and water. They lose the will to live itself and eventually fall down wherever they are and simply waste away. But because gold is such a valuable thing, such a good lure, by the time that happens, this quote-unquote gold has probably been spread around, creating opportunities for the creature to spread and claim more victims. By the time someone several territories over in a Dodge City gambling hall discovers something is really wrong, well, who would be able to trace this evil all the way back to little old Deadman's Creek, far into the barren hills of the frontier? We have a location, a monster that lives there. That monster has a basic physicality and a strong motivation. We have its first victims in the Hutchinsons. What are the actual stats of this creature? This is where I pull out all the books. I'm a physical book girl. I want them all. I want to smell them. I want the special editions from my local game store. I want to spread them all out on the table and feel very, very rich. The internet, obviously, that works too. As I was looking around, I came across a metallic ooze stat block from Tome of Horrors by Frog God Games. Say that 5 times fast. And I didn't wind up taking much from this resource, but it's a good one for you to look at if you're thinking of running this game. You might find something that I didn't. So give Frog God Games some love. I wound up ultimately choosing the Elder Oblex, a creature from Monsters in the Multiverse. Again, I'm assuming you're a proficient DM. Alter this stat block as you see fit. Take or leave the lore. I like to keep in mind that the monsters we know the least about, if you're watching a movie, you see just little flashes of it coming out of the shadows, those are the scariest ones. In this instance, I like not having all the questions answered. I think it's a feature and not a bug. Also, a side note, apparently the Oblex was created as part of the Make-A-Wish program. One of you brought this to my attention in the comments of the video, and I was blown away. Nolan Whale was his name. He did an amazing job. It's such a dynamic, unique, creepy critter. What an amazing legacy to have in Dungeons and Dragons. So hats off to Nolan Whale, and thank you for bringing this to my attention. I chose the Elder Oblex for several reasons. It's a nasty monster. It fits the ooze-like thing that we need. I like to have challenging big bads in my one-shots. My players are on board with that. Make sure your players are too before you throw really big bads at them. I also like there's different levels of Oblex. If you wanted to make it a little easier on your party, or have them encounter a lower level version of this creature at some point before the OG Oblex in the creek, you can do that. I also chose the Oblex because it has an ability to mimic its victims. That is some creepy, nefarious shit. So now, seeing that, I've got an image of old Levi Hutchinson being murdered by this monster. The monster's now imitating him, going through the motions of mining or panning for gold down in the creek, while Levi's family is in various stages of infection or maybe decay. Their bodies strewn here and there for our player characters to discover and wonder at. An outlaw gang running around trying to find the gold. The family having traded some of this gold. And the very beginning stages of infection happening with people at the nearby outpost. Well, what is this outpost? Let's call it Two Guns. No one in Two Guns has heard from old Levi and the kids, and someone needs to investigate what's happened to them. Did you see what we did there? Two very important things. The first is we've created the overall arc of this adventure. We've bookended it. On the one end, we've got the climax. We've got an encounter with creepy pretend Levi Hutchinson and a nasty Elder Oblex-like creature in Deadman's Creek at the end of the story. In the middle, we've got maybe some little Oblexes. We've got some mysterious dead bodies. We've got a snooping outlaw gang to pull our players through the story. And we've got our beginning. We have the outpost of Two Guns and a community that's looking for answers. We have a hook for our player characters to come into the story. Someone has got to get to the bottom of what has happened to Levi Hutchinson. Another important thing has happened. The second thing might not have been as obvious to you. We started out with thinking about the structure of the Western genre. But now that we've got the story fleshed out, we're actually going to have to come to terms with the fact that Western has stopped being the genre and has just become the setting. It belongs just on the stylistic flat surface of this map. The structure of it, the peaks and valleys, the texture of the topographical map has changed. We're really structurally looking now at a horror mystery genre type of story. And so the bones of this, the features that we're going to lay this stylistically Western map down upon to create our 3D world, it's really more of a horror story now. And that's exciting because we started one place and we wound up someplace else, just like our characters are going to do as they explore. Thank you all for coming on that journey with me. If any of that was helpful to you, let me know in the comments. If you want me to do more of these kind of behind the scenes, how my brain noodles type of videos, let me know that too. If you haven't checked out my 4th of July one-shot yet, it is a very different tone. A very nostalgic childhood adventure. Check that out. As always, thank you so much for exploring the feminine urge to play Dungeons and Dragons with me, Owlbear Rogue.